I'd like to welcome Clint H. from Los Angeles.
Thank you. My name is Clint Hodges. I'm an alcoholic. And I am glad to be here. I'm very, very glad to be here. And I'm glad that there are new people here. And I want to welcome the couple that was up here tonight. This is a stunningly good place to be, and I'm glad that you're both here together. That just delights me. I think that this weekend has been remarkable. My friend John came up here with me from Los Angeles, and we've had a good time, a wonderful time up here. I had my last drink on August 14th, 1966. That seems like a lot of time, doesn't it? Seems like it to me, I'll tell you that. That happened in Glendale, California. My home group is the Thursday night men's stag meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in West Los Angeles. We meet at 7:30 on Thursday evening. The men are welcome. Please come by, give us a holler, and we'll take you to that meeting and meet you there. It's a funny thing. I'll tell you how that meeting started in a little while, but it's been going strong for 10 years now, I guess, 11 years, something like that. But I got sober in Glendale. I got sober because of an extraordinarily gracious God. I got sober because He loved me through you, because a bail bondsman that had never, ever taken anybody to Alcoholics Anonymous before took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was living in Glendale alone in I called it a double garage. It really was not that. It was something much less than that. But if you asked me, I said there were 4 of us living in a double garage that had been cut up into rooms. Some years ago, my wife, Linda, and I were over in Glendale, and she said, I want to see the garage. And so I drove down into that part of town, and she said, is that it? And I said, yes. She said, that's not a garage. She said, that's a shed is what that is. And that's a shed, I'll tell you. It's a shed, and 4 of us lived there. We each had a little room. I had a smelly room. I don't know what those other rooms were like. My room smelled bad. It had a sticky linoleum floor. It had a wet mattress on a steel frame. It had an old copy of Playboy magazine in there that I had purchased in a fit of enthusiasm one day. That had become my social life. I think you know what I mean. Kind of like, honey, I'm home, you know. We gave up a lot to come in here, didn't we? It's kind of sad. I think about that guy living there, and I think about those other guys, and I think about the only thing I knew about the shower that was attached was that I heard it once in a while. It was an unconfirmed report. I never was in that shower. I just heard those other guys taking a shower. I lived in filth and squalor. I lived in a state of absolute denial of how bad it was. I hadn't seen my wife. I'd been married a couple of times. I had 3 sons. I had not seen any of those people. Didn't want them to see me. I had stood in front of the judge in the Glendale court system many times with guilty, Your Honor. Guilty with an explanation. I had some buttes. Jaime had a refrigerator box. And it was all about the same in a sense. I was telling Mike tonight. I'm a lawyer. I got to law school after I'd been sober a while, and that was certainly not on my list of things to do at all. But I practiced law with a guy whose mother had come into Alcoholics Anonymous, whose mother, since dead, was a famous writer. And she wrote a little essay about her coming into Alcoholics Anonymous. She wrote, after that long, sterile diet of snake pits and manure piles on which no roses ever grew, I longed for hope. I longed for hope. And I don't know that I could have said it. I'm not sure that if I admitted I was out of hope and admitted that I longed for hope, it was almost, I would die. I would die. So I didn't get close to that. I didn't get close to knowing the state I was in. I just drank and woke up in jail and woke up in the park and had, in those days, there was a song most of the time I spends behind these county bars. Remember that song, I Drink So Good? It was that. It was that resignation to a life. And I'd had opportunity before. I had been given many opportunities, and I squandered every one of them. I'm living in a shed in Glendale, California in the hot summer, and I'm walking down the street, and this guy pops his horn as he slowed up at the curb, and I looked over, and he motioned me over, and it was this bail bondsman with whom I had done some business. We did a lot of business. He said, I'm going to take you someplace. He said, I will take you someplace today. And I did not ask him. As I got in the car, you think, where are we going? I didn't ask. It didn't matter. Maybe back to jail, maybe to the hospital, maybe to county, where they gave out jars of pills in those days. That sounded good. There weren't treatment programs in 1966, but there was a guy out in the San Fernando Valley, a guy by the name of Ron Shire, and he had a little spin dry operation. You know, he'd be in and out of there in 3 days, and we called it Shire's Dryer. I thought maybe he was going to take me out to Shire's Dryer. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Because there wasn't any hope. There wasn't any sense that I should choose this over that. I didn't have a plan. Those had all gone. There was no plan. There was no tomorrow I'll do this. It was some fantasy. But mostly it was a search for oblivion. That's what I wanted. And I got it when I could get it. I didn't do efficient drinking. I bought half pints. And there was some notion that I could quit. I had tried in the past, and perhaps you have too, not wanting to be a drunk, not wanting all of that furniture on the front lawn and the cops and the fights and the scariness. We either do that or we do something else that's interesting, and I'll bet that I just had a feeling that Kim's family might have had a really well-manicured front lawn. We need that image. And as she said, inside it's different. Even when we're looking good, inside us it's different. Inside us we're so confused about how it is that other people seem to be getting along. They drink a little and then they stop. They don't seem to need it the way I need it. Linda was talking about that. I take a drink and all of it is all over because I'm not going to stop. We get into situations I did where if I only knew I could have one drink or two, no, pass. I'll wait. I don't want to set that up. When I was in the Marine Corps in Camp Pendleton, I was new on a bunch of officers that come in from Officer Candidate School, a bunch of second lieutenants. And there was a general's reception, and we all got on our dress blues, and we showed up at the general's residence on the base. And it was very clearly explained. You get one drink, one glass of wine, and that is it. And of course, I knew that I could get more. And they made it very clear, one glass of wine, and that's it, and you can't leave before 2 hours. And you will be at the general's reception. And so I had my glass of wine, and then I immediately started to look for the second one, and I could not get a second glass of wine. I wandered in the kitchen, out in the servants' quarters. I wandered all over the place. I was rebuffed at every turn. I was wearing dress blues, and I began to perspire, and I began to sweat, and there was no escape. And I stood there trying to chit-chat and look effective for 2 hours. And I died. They finally let us go, and I left and got drunk in those dress blues, unable to unhook that collar and get out of the darn thing. So when I knew in that agonizing evening at the general's residence at Camp Pendleton, California, that I don't want to start that. I need to have a lot of booze. And I always made sure that I did, and I was always certain that I would stop drinking. I knew I could quit. If I just put my mind to it, I knew I could quit. This is the last half pint I'm going to need. And I'd go down for 4 or 5 half pints by noon. And so I wound up living in the shed. Family gone, no opportunity for job, nothing. I'd been off of active duty for a few months. Selling encyclopedias door to door. Sort of. Going to jail. And the guy put me in his car that day. I had in that little room, I had a clock radio. I don't know if there are any left up here in the Pacific Northwest, but maybe you've had, if you're new, a clock radio. The interesting thing about these radios is that they just start to play. You don't have to turn them on. You don't have to fiddle with it. They just are, suddenly your room is filled with music. Not bad music, but it's like you try to turn the radio off. You pull the plug out of the wall. The radio plays. It plays. You take it out and put it in the dirt outside. That radio plays. I heard a gal at a meeting after I'd been sober about 6 months. She said that she had been arrested for taking a hammer to a parking meter. And I asked her why. After the meeting, she said that thing was broadcasting every rotten thing she had ever done. And I learned a little more about my radio that day. And I had a rat in there one morning over by the door that terrified me. I stared at that rat all night in the darkness. I could see those little beady eyes. I knew that he would charge me. I knew he'd win. We both knew he'd win. And the clock says 4 a.m. and it's dark in there, and you just hunker down and hide and hear yourself sob a little bit. You look again at the clock and it's 4:15, and you think surely an hour has gone by, and only 15 minutes has gone by, and those interminable nights make you crazy. And when a little light came under the door in an hour, I looked over there. I dared take one more look over there. And my rat, in some amazing way, had turned into a pair of socks laying over there. And so if you're new and you've had one of those radios, welcome home. If you've been held hostage by a pair of socks all night, I'm your guy. We'll chat. And it was that. Manure piles on which no roses ever grew. They'd stopped looking for me. Nobody was interested. And the guy took me, the bail bondsman, over to something called the Alano Club of Glendale, whatever that may be. We went up a long flight of stairs and inside, and there you were. I'd been to a meeting 5 years earlier in Portland on Burnside Street in a Skid Row building. And I left the meeting knowing that whatever you had that was wrong with you was not what was wrong with me. And then I realized that I was in another meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in Glendale, California, and I sat at a table with you, and you were kind to me, and you invited me to come back. And I had nothing else to do. And I was back that night, and I was back, and I was back. And then in 3 weeks, around 3 weeks, I ran across in the room, I found a stash of amphetamines and cash. And that requires a drink. And I was on a rough run for 2 weeks. Wound up in Lawton, Oklahoma, of all places. And I got back to Glendale and woke up in the little room. Somebody had added a piece of furniture that I hadn't noticed before. There was a jumping off point there. I could neither live with it or without it. And I walked over to the club that morning, the 14th of August, 1966. It was just another day. It was a hot day. It was already hot. And I could not be in the park and get pushed around by the gangs. I could not be on the street and get arrested. I could not stay in that room. I couldn't write a check and go get a hotel. I just had no place except that club, and you'd been kind to me, and I walked over there, and I walked up that long flight of stairs, and it was mid-morning on a day that was going to be very hot. And I pushed the door, and it was open. And there was somebody in there doing his job in AA the way that you have been doing your jobs to make this conference happen. The way that Shannon and all of you have had your sleeves rolled up. The way of AA, where we take our turn. We go to meetings and we shake hands and we take our turn. It gets no more complicated than that. And somebody was in there doing his job in AA because the door was unlocked and open, and because the coffee was on, and because the lights were on. And this guy was doing his job in AA in a way that I really didn't appreciate it that day. I look back on it, and the reason that I say he was doing it in a different way is because he had the most beautiful smile on his face that I had ever seen. This guy had a look about him that is so gorgeous, the look of somebody who is consistently willing to give more than he gets out of life. Beautiful guy. I could not have said that then. I just was invited by him. He smiled. He never stopped smiling. And I felt so bad about who I was, who I had become. And I knew I needed to be in his good graces that day because I needed to be in the club. But it was kind of nice to see him smile. I knew that would change. I knew when he found out that I had gotten drunk again, he'd become very difficult. He did not. He said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing good." He said, "What happened?" And in spite of my resolve to lie, I said, I got drunk. I got drunk and let everybody down is what I said. Like AA in Glendale's going to collapse now. I don't know what He didn't stop smiling. He asked me a very interesting question. He could have said a lot of things. I would have said a lot of things. I would have said, well, you stop going to meetings. That's what happens. He said, smiling, he said, are you alcoholic? Not a bad question. I didn't know the answer. I thought, I don't know. I was 29 years old. I'm 67 now. I'm 29, and on that day, I didn't know, but what, maybe that's too young to be an alcoholic. I just didn't know. But I knew what the answer was supposed to be. You know what I mean? I knew. And I didn't want to offend him. I didn't want to lie to him. I didn't want to get him all amped up. I just didn't know what to do with him. And so I finally said, yeah, I've been an alcoholic about a month now. It's what I told him. Like I'm a mild case, you know what I mean? Just caught it. Some toilet seat deal. I don't know what happened. He didn't stop smiling. He said, so you're an alcoholic and you got drunk? I said, yeah. He said, we do that. That's it. That's it. You have broken the code. We do that. And he said a few more things. Like he said, because he remembered me from the meetings during the 3 weeks I'd been going, he said, you know, it really doesn't surprise us that you got drunk. He said, if you want to surprise us, get a job. That would surprise us. They were cruel even then, back then, yeah. He said, if you're an alcoholic like I am, and he's smiling, if you're an alcoholic of my type, he said, you're going to do that. You will drink no matter what. Didn't say it with any judgment or condemnation. He just gave me the simple dignity of the fact of the matter. If I'm an alcoholic of his type, I will drink no matter what. He went so far as to say that good people in AA will tell you don't drink no matter what. He said you will drink no matter what. That's going to be your deal. He said, you tried to quit a lot, haven't you? I said, yeah. He said, yeah. You're going to drink no matter what. He gave me no out. He gave me no if you don't shape up. He said, you're going to drink no matter what. And I wasn't listening for the formula that would prevent all of that from happening. I knew he was right. I drink no matter what. I drink. Oh God, I wish I didn't drink. I wish I could quit. I will tell you, I'll bring home the check on payday. Check does not get home. I'll pick up the kids. No, somebody else has to pick up my kids. I'll be home right after work. No. In fact, I have kind of an odd economy. I have the check on payday, and my intention is to take it home, and then I adjust that intention just enough to say, well, I'll cash the check and take the money home. And I cash it in a bar. And I adjust it a little more because I take 20 and put it in one pocket. That's my money. That's drinking money. And I put the family money in my other pocket. And then I adjust it a little bit more and I order a drink. And pay for it out of the family money because I'm not drinking. That doesn't make sense too many places. It makes sense here. And then at 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock or whenever it is, my family money is gone and I have to actually get into my drinking money to stay there. And I'm annoyed at the load my family is. And I'm drunk again. And I don't bring the money home and I don't pick up. I drink no matter what. And I knew it. I knew it. This guy, I knew. I'll drink no matter what. I surrendered to that idea that day in the Glendale Alano Club. I didn't surrender in any other sense. I didn't surrender to AA. I didn't surrender to God. I didn't surrender to... But I surrendered. Troops that have surrendered, we've seen it on TV. They throw down their rifles and they go sit at the side of the road and they wait for somebody to tell them what to do. Somebody will come along and tell them what to do. And I went inside, took a couple of more steps at his invitation, knowing I'll drink no matter what, and I sat down in a chair. And I was kind of relieved because the cat's out of the bag and I'm going to drink no matter what, and the pretense is over and I'll be on Skid Row in 3 weeks. And the guy invited me to stay there that day. In fact, he told me he'd get me a coffee. He had a little kitchen. He'd fix me a sandwich if I wanted. He said, "You can stay here." And I did. I did. And I think it's so amazing that I never took another drink in these 38 years. I'm 67 now. I have a sense of astonishment that I didn't drink. I didn't even know I wasn't drinking for 9 months. I 9 months. God, I haven't had a drink. And I'm just going to meetings and being with you. I'm just going to meetings and slowly I began to laugh. I knew I would drink again. There was no question in my mind I would drink again. Because the guy said, "You'll drink no matter what." I had that secret. You didn't seem to know I was going to drink again. And so you were kind to me. You gave me rides. You took me into your homes for parties. You made me laugh. And you had that sense of, "Come on and join us." And because there was no choice in it, I joined you. With that knowledge that I wasn't really a part of you, because I drink no matter what. And you were good people, and you had clearly quit. And then you have this book around here, this book called Alcoholics Anonymous, and that book is tough going if you're new here. You read it with your head and it doesn't quite make sense. Have you noticed that? I mean, here's a guy that uses things like the goose hung high. What the hell is that, Wilson? What? Things that are faintly annoying, if you want to know the truth, it's... here's one. Our troubles arise out of ourselves. My troubles arose out of my grandmother and my mom. I lived my life wanting people to change, and they never did. And right under that, in the hope and the great, wonderful message in that simple sentence is, No one has to change for me to get free. If they arise out of me, for me to get free, no one else has to change. And it was a while before I sensed that. I want people to change. I want dead people to change. They're not going to change. I don't think. If only my stepmother had, I had a litany of all the reasons I didn't do this and that. This book is nutty with that kind of stuff. But so are the things you hear around here. My friend Kenneth says, your problems will die of neglect. What kind of stuff is that? I don't dare take my eye off my problems. Yes, you do. Just get busy here. They will die of neglect. Isn't that great? We were talking earlier today, there's a friend of mine down in Texas who tells her babies, if it's going to be funny someday, it's probably funny today. What? I don't think so. It is. Wilson says, I grew up in a very religious home. I grew up in hellfire and brimstone. I grew up knowing I'm going to hell when I die. I grew up knowing the futility of Protestant prayers. I grew up not in the least comforted by, now I lay me down to sleep. You get to that part about, if I should die before I wake, that'll keep you awake a while. Just, working that through. Wilson says, God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. Oh, how nice for you, Bill. Oh, we're all so happy for you. You and that white light deal. Come on. And so you put it aside and you pick it up and you go to meetings and you do whatever. You let me come with you on an institutional night, 9 months sober. Come on, we're going to go put on a meeting in a nut house. You can come. I was thrilled to be included with this group. I like them. You laughed and you loved one another, and I knew that. I knew you loved each other. I knew that. You see, it wasn't like the church, because in the church you didn't get that anyone loved anybody. You didn't get that there was a tone of authenticity to the stories that are heard here. You will hear people say the strangest things, and you will know that they believe those things, and you will know that those things were their story. And I'd never had that experience. I'd never met men that I could respect and admire. So I jumped in that car with you. We went down that flight of stairs after I had a job setting up the chairs in the meeting. I love that job. Get a job. Get a commitment. Do something. I tell you, it's like any kind of a job. It's only partly what they pay you to do the job, and of course there's no pay attached to setting up the chairs in the meeting, but it's who you become while you're doing that job. I had the straightest rows of chairs in town. It had become our meeting. I could save a seat for myself. And so I had my chair set up, and they said, come on, we're going to go put on a meeting. And we got in Bill Christian's old Chrysler. 6 of us went down that flight of stairs and got in the parking lot and got in Bill Christian's old Chrysler. And in the time-honored way of AA, as a newcomer, I sat in the back seat on the hump. Remember the hump? It's where you sit. I'm fine with it. Because I get to be with you. why you laugh and tell yourselves these wonderful stories, and you loving each other. We get down the road, and we get down to where we're going to turn off at Metropolitan State Hospital. And I said, where are we going? And they said, we're going to put a meeting on in the nut house over here. And we pulled into the gate, cyclone fences and all of that. And over there is a cinder block building, and as we got closer, they said the meeting is in that nut house, in that little building there. That's where the nut house is. And we stopped near there, and everybody got out of the car, and then it hit me. Suddenly I knew very clearly why they had brought me along. 6 of us are going in that nut house, and 5 of them are coming back out. And the most astonishing thing is, my first thought is I can outrun every one of these old fools, I can be over a cyclone fence in a hot minute. And I kept pace with you, thinking the most astonishing thought. If you think I belong in the nut house, perhaps I do. Maybe I do. And I went in there with you. And the meeting lasted an hour. And at the end of the hour, we all came back outside into a warm California evening. And we got in Bill Christian's old Chrysler. And I sat in the middle in the back seat on the home and slept in my own bed that night. Trusting. Birds fly and fish swim and people trust. And I hadn't trusted anybody for a long time. And I lay in bed thinking, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Incidentally, I want to thank Wade and Dan for picking us up at the airport. That's always such a wonderful thing. I don't know how alcoholics hook up like that in the airport. I didn't know either one of them. I had a name. That was about all. We were going to meet at baggage. We're coming down the escalator, and I heard my name called from somebody on the escalator. And there they were, Wade and Dan. Thank you so much. And they have given us excellent kindness while we're here. Because they're doing their job at AA. Wilson said, God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound. And one day, as the days and weeks and months went by, and the years rolled by, and you come back to that. You come back to what happened. What happened on the 14th of August? I know I didn't quit. I could not have. I tried. What happened that day to me? My birthday. And one day I got it. One day I stopped reading that book with my head and began to read it with my heart. Began to read it with other people, not just mouth those words, but really look to see. And I've been sober quite a while. I got busy doing everything but asking a very important question: what happened on the 14th of August? And I looked again, and those words are my words. His God comes to most men gradually. His impact on me was sudden. It was sudden. I didn't know it, but it was sudden. I mean, like on the 14th I'm a drunk, and on the 15th I'm not drinking, and have not drank since then. That's sudden. Man, that is moving right along. Isn't that amazing? And it's profound. His impact on me was profound. He went right to that piece of me that needs a drink all the time and heals it up. That's profound. And I lined up with Bill on that simple sentence. That's an amazing thing. I want to... sometimes our language describing that day includes that we quit. Well, I quit drinking on such and such a day. I don't think the real alcoholics in the room quit drinking that day. Heavy drinkers can quit if a sufficiently strong reason presents itself. They get married, or they go to graduate school, or they get a job, or a baby is born, and they can quit. And they're not here tonight. They're out shopping. They're leading their lives. We don't have that. We don't quit. We don't quit. So what happened that day? A guy named Chuck Chamberlain down in Southern California used to say about his last drink, he would say, if I had known that was going to be my last drink, I would have had two. But it's worth the inquiry because that's an amazing amount of power. More power than I have ever had. To take me from drunk to sober in a day, maybe in the blink of an eye. Maybe that. Whatever decisions we make around that, I can't lay claim to anything at all simply because I went over to the club that day. Because I didn't have any idea that was going to be the last day I drank. I had no idea that I would surrender to anything that day. And I surrendered to that simple idea that I will drink no matter what. And up until the time I knew I could quit, I was a drunk. And the day I knew I could not quit was the last day I drank. In that odd juxtaposition of how you really think it should be. And so, my time in AA started. My time in AA grew sweeter. My time in Alcoholics Anonymous became filled with doing stuff. And then I got a sponsor, moved over to the west end of town. If you're new, get a sponsor. It's a tricky business. You've got to watch them like a hawk. Because they want to get right into the middle of your personal life, and we don't like that. I'll tell you how to get past that. I'm just going to give you a little clue. Throw them a bone once in a while. Asking some crap question, you don't care how it comes out. Should I wear the green socks or the blue socks? Well, wear the blue socks. Oh, thank you. That's the most beautiful thing. That's right. So I go to my sponsor. I got a problem. He says, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, what is it? I said, I hate my ex-wife. Hate her. He said, he got ugly almost immediately. He said, do you want to do something about that? I didn't want to do anything about that. I had a car by this time and a job, and it's something to do on the freeway. You hate your ex-wife. I enjoyed hating her. And so I lied, of course. I said, yeah, I want to do something about that. Wouldn't have bothered you otherwise. He said, well, did you know if you want to change how you feel about somebody, you have to change how you treat them? Okay, thanks. He said, come here. How's that child support coming? And we were in the middle of child support. And I won't belabor it like he did, but before that conversation ended, I had a lot of instructions. Because he'd aired out a couple of facts like I wasn't paying what I should, like there was an order for me to pay it, like I had a job that I afforded I could pay it. And I have this insane idea that if she got that child support money on time, she won and I lost. And so I'd take it over there and give it to her in person, or I'd skip a month or whatever I did. And he said, I didn't have a checking account until I was 5 years sober, but I had money orders on payday. He said, add one more money order. Take the envelope down to the bank on payday. Take it with her name and address and your return and a stamp. And buy one more money order for 150% of what you owe, because you're behind, and you will get caught up. Put the money order in the envelope. Put the envelope, after you seal it, in the slot in the bank. Do not take that home and put it on your dresser and think about it. And I began to do that. He said, if you don't do that, and I said something about not wanting to do it. He said, that's fine. That's okay. You don't have to want to do it. You just have to do it. Okay, either way. And if you don't do it, he said, you can get another sponsor. I mean, we're like, hey, he was more interested in my recovery than I was. Because I want to be cute, I started doing that. I started doing that, and within months, I'm driving along one day, and it occurred to me that she's a good mother. I hadn't had a positive thought about her for a long time. And I knew that day she was a good mother. And then another day, and I knew that she loved my son. And that began to kind of give me a completely different feeling about her, an assessment of her I'd never had. And my son and I became friends and still are. I have 3 sons and 7 grandchildren, and this boy, my youngest boy, the apple of my eye, raised his 3. They're not all raised. He's got a toddler and he's got one in junior high. He's got a son that is starting his 3rd year at Harvard University. And we are not Harvard people. And my son and I and his son and that family are friends. We have a lot of fun together. And it wouldn't have happened. And the funny thing about it is my money got better. As long as I was telling myself I couldn't afford to pay child support, my money was goofy. Somehow or other the universe says, oh, you can't afford it. Oh, okay, well, we'll make sure that happens. And you can't afford it somehow. I don't know what that spiritual law is, but I know it. And when you say I can afford it, the money kind of just sort of straightens out. Anyway, get a sponsor. The day came after I got that license to practice law at 9 months of sobriety, 9 years of sobriety. I'm moving right along here. That I really wanted that, the power that came from that. I thought there was going to be some power attached to that. And I liked doing that work, and it was interesting work to do, and there's no power attached to it. It's just a different group of people to play with. But I was so sure that I could get the things that would make me happy out of that I just kind of forgot about any development of a spiritual life, and that went on for a while. And one day, when I'm making good money, and I've got name in the paper lawsuits going on, and I'm living in just a wonderful place, and I have a car, and I have a lady in my life again, always. Not a relationship, but an arrangement. One more arrangement. And she came to me and said, I don't want to play with you anymore. And my partner in the law firm came to me and said, I don't want to play with you anymore. And the house went on the market, and my income immediately came down close to zero. And I was spending and spending and spending, and I didn't have any real debt, but I didn't have any savings either. And the fact that my income went to zero in just a matter of a couple of months was very scary. And I'm living in a little apartment in the flatlands, and I'm angry at everybody, and I'm having a heck of a time. And I ran into some of you at a conference in Nashville and heard you talking about, it wasn't really about the fellowship of the Spirit, but it was about what became the fellowship of the Spirit. And a guy was moving from Denver out to the West Coast and said, I'm going to be out there. If you want me to call you, when I get out there, maybe we could go through the steps. I was terrified, and I said, okay. And I began that journey that we have begun with one another. The journey you begin, and neither one of you is coming back. That journey. And it's been an amazing time. 15 years, the last 15 years of my sobriety has been, by any measure, the sweetest of it all. By any measure, the sweetest of it all. And as I was saying this morning, part of that, you finally get to step 9. But along the way, I had the most wonderful experiences. I was so hungry for this. And the idea that God loves me was so foreign to me, but somehow or other, in chapter 4, in that chapter called We Agnostics, the chapter I never read because it didn't apply to me, there are some remarkable things you can do. You come to the answer to the question, is God everything or nothing? You come to the answer to the question, is there a place inside me where I can go where God is? You come to the answer to the question, do I dare leap into the abyss? When you find a place inside you where you can go, and I found it in a hotel room in San Diego during the middle of a trial one morning. In that last sentence in the 4th chapter, it says, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. And I've been searching. And I would say, come on, disclose yourself. Come on. He's not boggled by our impatience or discourtesy. He honors the slightest turn in his direction. And I'm a seeker. I needed that so much. And I asked for it. And you promised me absolute certainty on the point that my Creator had entered into my heart and lives in a way that is indeed miraculous. That is an amazing promise. Absolute certainty. There's no other theology I ever heard of that gives us that. And I have that certainty today. There is a place in me where God lives that I can be in touch with. Where that little piece of divinity in me can connect with the divinity in the universe. He's in me not like a pebble in a glass of water, but like the ocean is in a wave. That. And I never thought that would happen to me. I'm too cynical, and I'm too angry at religion, and I'm too this, and I'm too that. And somehow or other, because I was at last willing to do what you told me to do, amazing things happened. And it culminated at step 9 and me going to that cemetery in Billings, Montana, and spending those 2 days with my mom, who had been dead for so long, and who I had hated and feared for so long. And it went away in a weekend. I came back to Los Angeles a different person again. And only then could I have a relationship with a human being? There is this idea of an arrangement where it's contractual. You do this and I'll do that. And I want it because I want to know who I'm going to the dance with, who I'm going to wake up with. I want some certainty in my life. But of course, an arrangement is not really going to, because all of my security is based on the emotions of whoever is in my life. And there's always a penalty clause in these contracts for arrangements. And you keep score, and it's a weird thing. But a relationship has a covenant. A relationship has sacred purpose to it. A relationship has not security as its purpose, but growth and the happiness of the other person. And it's an astonishing, and it's so important, I think, that we get the difference. I think an arrangement with another human being is fine as long as both people want an arrangement and they get that it's what it is. Nothing wrong with an arrangement. But we don't want to think an arrangement is a relationship because it skews our idea of how we can be with God, because we can't have an arrangement with God. That has to be a relationship, sacred ground. And so we need to know the difference. And because I had made peace with my mom, I got this idea that we attract into our lives and think we belong with people that are like our mother, or for women like their father. And it wasn't quite like my mom, but it was how I thought my mom was. I thought she was angry. I was telling Linda this tonight. I thought she was aloof. I thought she hated to be on this planet. I thought she was waiting to die. I thought she was angry and punitive and I thought and dark and brooding. And I thought that's the kind of person that I would have in my life. And I always brought in somebody that fit those. And she was nothing like that. My memory was so skewed about who she was. I had last been, when I was 14, and stood at the grave and they buried her. And so, all that was gone. All of that has changed. All of that has shifted now because I've cleaned it up with my mom. Knew she had always loved me, and I loved her. I could always trust her. And I came back to Los Angeles, and the days went by, and I could feel there was a difference. I had a different idea about women. I began to have women friends. And as I said this morning, one of those friendships caught fire. And her name is Linda. And we've been together maybe 10 years now. And we've had some amazing times together. We have probably been in maybe 6 relationships. Isn't that interesting? 6. I mean, there was what we had at first, and then it kind of evolved into something else, but you could feel the difference, a deepening. I didn't know you could have a new relationship with the same person. And then it evolved, and then it evolved, and all of them have been fascinating. I like to look to see who she is every morning. She's yet different. And at the end of that time that I was going through the steps for the first time, really pushing the envelope and going through the steps, I began to take other guys through the steps, and I do that a lot. I always have on weekends somebody in my office, maybe 3 or 4 guys come in an hour at a time on Saturday morning and again on Sunday morning. That's what I do. And that's what I love to do. I love to see that light come on. And I like guys that are 15 or 20 years sober because we're so desperate. We're so desperate. Because we know that we haven't gotten all there is out of AA. And so I really astonishingly love this life. I was on an airplane back to the East Coast last year. It's been about a year and a half now. not AA stuff. I was going to give a talk to some people. I was traveling with Rick, a friend of John's and mine. And I happened to sit next to a couple of ministers. And I liked these guys immediately. And I knew, I could tell in 5 minutes, I knew all about their church called the, I don't know what they call it, the New Testament Gospel Church in North Carolina, a little church. They had their flock. And they were tending their flock. And they were all excited about their church. And they want to know about me, and I told them that I was a sober member of AA. I told them about you. I told them about my discoveries of God in my search. And I was having a big time with it. And we're cruising along across the country, and then, of course, as always happens with ministers who have this passion, they turn to you and they say, so what church do you go to? And I said, well, I don't really go to church. I go to AA meetings. And then they go, oh. They do it like that. They go, oh. Well, you read the Bible? No. I read a book called Alcoholics Anonymous that I love. I don't read the Bible much. Oh. And so we're talking a little bit more, and the guy doesn't like the answers I'm giving him. I don't know what else to tell him, He's not happy about this, and so he needs to do his thing. And so finally, he says, one of these days, he's got a little energy going on now. One of these days, you're going to be at heaven's gate. And God's going to be there. And you're going to want to be led into God's heaven. And He's going to ask you why. He should let you in if you don't go to church and you don't read the Bible. What are you going to tell him? And I figured, well, I might as well just let him know. And he's curious, and I said, but I heard myself say, my God wouldn't ask that question. He wouldn't ask me that question. He let me into His heaven 35 years ago, and I've been there ever since. And, of course, I didn't hear anything from him for 30 minutes as we were trying to go on. And I didn't really, but I just thought I would tell him, That's not the kind of God I have. I got a big God. I don't have one of those small bore gods. It's like when at step 7, can He really remove these defects of character? Is He big enough? Does He have the horsepower for that? Yes. Will He do it for me? For me? Yes. Okay. All I have to do is ask. Yes. Okay. And so I have one of those big guy gods. And He moves fast. And He, I guess, is a newfound friend in a sense. I guess my attitude toward God is the attitude of a small airplane pilot at the tower. When they say, what's your attitude? The pilot says, he really reports his relationship with the horizon. Straight and level. Pulling out right, pulling out left, diving, whatever it is. And my attitude toward God for so many years was leaning away. Tonight I'm leaning in. I'm leaning. I need the support and the comfort and the love and the power. And so it's been quite a fantastic thing. And I had the diagnosis earlier this year. And they said, you have prostate cancer. And I get you thinking, you know what I mean? You just start mulling stuff over. What does that mean and where is it going to go? And I'm crazy about this wife and this wonderful, wonderful lady. I'm devoted to her. And what does that mean? What'll that do with our relationship? And I had the surgery. And the surgery was a radical surgery. There was no nerve-sparing piece to it. It had gotten pretty good progress. And so that gets you thinking. And I'm home from the hospital, and my friend Mike and I are talking, and other people that I know are giving me a lot of support. My wife is too. See, I'm nuts for this lady, and I'm scared. And a friend of mine that I've known for 30 years more, 35 maybe, in Arizona called me up. He said, without much preliminary, he said, I want to tell you a story. I said, okay. I'm at home and doing all that. He said, it's about a guy that loved skydiving. He loved it so much. Every extra hour that he had and every extra dollar that he had was spent in this skydive thing. And he'd get into a plane and get up to altitude, and he loved skydiving. Loved it. Did it every moment he could. He loved skydiving. And one day he's up there in the plane and he's getting his gear laid out and the door's open and he's going to go out that door. He's got his parachute there and he's ready to put his parachute on, and the plane lurches because of an updraft and the pilot overcorrect and it lurched the other way, and this guy flipped out that door before he could get his parachute on. And my friend said that guy had the same choice at that instant that we all do. I said, yeah, what's that? He said he could spend the rest of his life relishing doing something that he absolutely loved to do, or living in abject fear. And I'm going, what? He said, we all have that choice. He said, you know when we get flipped out of the plane? I said, when? He said, the day we're born. And so the task, and I got that. I don't want to live in abject fear. So I want to do what I love doing the most. I'll tell you what I love doing. I love being with you. I'll tell you what I love doing. I love doing my job. I love taking those guys through the steps. I love watching the light go on. I love being with my wife. I love this life. It isn't very complicated. There's only 3 kinds of prayer. Lois Wilson's memorial service included this concept, and it was wonderful. And if you're new, pray. Why not? Why not? We pray for help. Help me. That's a good prayer. Help me. Give me. Good prayer. Give me. Grant me the serenity is a give me prayer. Give me. And finally, when the give me and the help me prayers have all been said, there's one more. The sweetest one, I think. Use me. Use me. Use me. You've given me all you can give me. You help me all you can, and then you'll help me again. Use me. I'll show up and be obedient, and thank you for the opportunity. And so that's my prayer. What I love to do the most is be with you and be with my job and be with my wife and be with my guys that I sponsor, and it's not complicated. And if I just show up and live my life in such a way that he can love my wife through me, and if he can use me in whatever way he's going to use me, I'm a happy man. Thank you. Thank you.